I'm Melissa. I work for Severn Energy Agency, which are a charity working for a sustainable future free from fuel poverty. I work on the Warm and Well programme in Gloucestershire, and this is funded by the local authorities.
Mostest with the mostest. Can you tell me a little bit about retrofit? What is retrofit?
Well, retrofit is doing something retrospectively to your property. So it's kind of like DIY, where you're improving something that you've already had built in its existing form. So this can involve insulation, so that's probably where you'd usually start, making it more airtight if it's a bit drafty, and then actively ventilating. And then if you want to install renewables and heating sources, you then go on to that next in the roadmap.
What is an air source heat pump?
An air source heat pump is a way of heating your home, and it works like a reverse refrigerator. So it's like a box that sits outside the building usually, and for every unit of electricity that you put in, it's then extracting heat from the air around it outside and then pushing that back through the central heating system. So you can have it going, the heat going from the air outside to water, so for like a wet central heating system with radiators, or go from air to air where you might have a warm air system. And so for every unit of electricity you're putting in, you're getting more heat in terms of kilowatt hours out of it because of the extraction from the air outside, and that's why it's a more energy efficient way to heat the home. They're only appropriate in certain properties, and I say that because you do want to consider, if you've got a drafty home, that it's a low constant heat rather than a big influx of heat that you get when you start a fire or turn on a gas central heating system. So we need to reconsider the way we heat our homes when we're using an air source heat pump, because it's a low constant heat and that's how it works most efficiently.
How do I insulate my solid wall property?
So you'd insulate your solid wall property in either one or two ways. So you either do it internally, so that's inside the house, or externally. There's pros and cons to both forms of insulation. So if you're doing it externally, it envelopes the house, so it's actually a bit better in terms of insulation, but you then have changed the look on the outside of the house. So on listed properties, you need to get consent for this, and also it would obviously come out a bit more. So if you're right on the pavement, you need to consult your local council to do it externally. And you should with all external insulation, because it does change the look of the property. For internal, you'd obviously put it inside the walls, but you would lose a bit of space in doing that. And it's a little less effective than external wall insulation. And it's more disruption to you if you've already got all your furniture and everything inside the property. Insulation needs to be chosen based on the property. So older properties tend to be built to breathe. So if you put in, say, a more plastic-based non-permeable insulation rather than a natural permeable insulation like wood fibre or hemp, then you'd not be able to, the wall wouldn't be able to breathe anymore.
So what if a builder tells you that you can't insulate your property because it's old and you'll get mould?
So that's the case where somebody has not used the right insulation. So older buildings do need to breathe, so they need to be ventilated. And sometimes if you put non-permeable insulation in on an old wall, then you've stopped it breathing and that moisture movement in and out of the wall. But you can get permeable, so breathable natural products that you can use as insulation on your wall. So that could be wood fibre, mineral wool, or lime hemp. Render externally. So there's a range of things that you can use that breathe, and what that means is the moisture can still be absorbed by the wall and let out by the wall, and you don't get that build-up of condensation, damp and mould. When we're putting making any of these sort of changes to the property, we'd also consider the ventilation. So you want to insulate, you want to make the property airtight, so you're getting rid of those drafts that you can't control, and then you put active ventilation in, which you can control. So that could just be a fan with a humidity dial on it. You set it for the humidity that you want and is healthy for the inside of your home to be, and then it actively turns on when it needs to, and so it controls that moisture level so you won't get that damp buildup, which leads to mould.
Can you tell me a little bit about what the Warm and Well project is?
Yes, So the Warm and Well project is commissioned by the local authorities and the Clinical Commissioning Group in Gloucestershire to provide advice to residents on energy efficiency and how they can improve their homes to be healthier. We generally think of healthier homes as warmer and without damp and mould. The people who can support with grants and funding, which we also access on behalf of the local authorities, would be in low-income vulnerable situations, so they're vulnerable to the health effects of a cold home essentially, and they've got a low income, or they'd be in fuel poverty, so the property is really, really hard to heat and they're on a low income again, so they cannot afford to heat that home to a healthy level. And for those people, we can support them getting funding for insulation through the energy company obligation. We can support them with getting new central heating systems if they've not got one already. We can support landlords with our paid for MEES service, so that's the minimum energy efficiency requirements of the property. And all properties that are rented out have to be a D and above at the moment, and that's going to continue to get to a higher level. So that's a D with energy performance certificate. An energy performance certificate is a basic way to assess the energy efficiency of the property. So it tells you if it is good, if it's easy to heat. So an A is really efficient and an F is not very efficient. And as you can imagine, that scale goes from red to green, so green is more efficient. And all properties we want to really be a D and above, and we'll continue to move up that scale as we get nearer to 2030, so to our carbon neutral goals.